Hello and welcome to the panel where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, we're going to flash back to the 1980s, a time of big hair, cassette tapes, and murder? Strap in for a tale about the three R's reading, revenge, and revolvers because school's in session as we dive into Deadly Class from Image Comics. Hey everyone, and joining me today for the show we have content marketing manager at Previews World and comic writer Troy Jeffrey Allen.
What's up, guys? Let's go kill Ronald Reagan. Should be fun.
And our special guest today is cosplayer, model, internet personality, and all-around badass Lua Stardust.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I am repping King's Dominion and I'm ready to go.
All right, how's everyone doing?
Cool, not bad. It's nice outside,
Yeah.
so that helps.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Anyone been able to get out a little bit? I know we're still trying to be safe, but anyone get out for some fresh air?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, does going to the office to work for a couple of hours count?
How does it feel going back to the office, though?
I mean, it was very temporary. Like, I literally just went in there to mail some stuff off and leave. But, it's still, I mean, it's nice. I do want to say, if I could just do some bragging rights real quick.
Yeah.
I got an office recently, so I'm a big boy now, right?
Oh.
And I don't know who was in that office before, but they left this behind.
Oh, it's a
It was
sign.
meant to be. Yeah.
It was that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, this was meant to be. This is destiny. This is kismet. This comic and I are Romeo and Juliet. That's what's gonna go. We're gonna kill ourselves at the end of this. That's how it's gonna work.
All right.
Dark. It went downhill so fast.
Well, let's get into it. All right, quick background on the books. The book was written by Rick Remender and has art by Wes Craig. Deadly Class was first published in January of 2014. Basically, welcome to the most brutal high school on Earth where the world's top crime families send the next generation of assassins to be trained. Murder is an art, killing is a craft, and at King's Dominion High School for the Deadly Arts, the dagger in your back isn't always metaphorical, nor is your fellow classmates' poison.
Hmm.
All right. Before we get into it, initial thoughts. What did you think of the series? Lua, I mean, you're already repping it, so I can already tell where this is going to go, but what's your initial
Yeah.
thoughts?
So, Image actually sent me it to review, which was really, really cool and exciting. And I immediately got hooked because I'm super into anything that's 1980s already. Like the 80s, I think is the best for like music and just like culture all around. I think it's really cool. So as soon as I saw the art style and I saw who wrote it, I was immediately interested. And then it just kind of went all downhill for me, like in a way where I spent so much money making 3 different costumes from the show. And yeah, I just love it. So initial thoughts are all really positive.
What about you, Troy?
I love this book. I kind of got into it late, although I remember reading the first issue when it came out, and being like, "Oh, this is cool. I'm going to wait for trade." And now I find myself like a couple of years later collecting every single issue just because that's how in love I am with this book. And then they went on hiatus yet last year and just came back this week, and it's like revisiting a slightly psychotic sociopathic friend, but it's always great. It's always like just a great nail biter. So I love it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a very, very brutal Harry Potter in a very messed up world. So,
I don't know if this is true, but like I remember the first time I read it, I was like, was this like an X-Men pitch? Like, you know what I mean? Like, was this like an X-Men concept that like Rick Remender was like, screw it, I'm going to Image and just doing my own thing? I always wondered that about this, but I don't know.
well, it's funny you say that because I'm going to touch on that really fast as we dive
Okay.
deeper into the story. So the story was created by Rick Remender, a writer, showrunner, and producer on top of working on titles like Deadly Class, Low, Uncanny X-Force, and Uncanny Avengers. The story takes place in 1987. Marcus Lopez hates school, his grades suck, he has no money, the jocks are hassling his friends, and he can't focus in class thanks to his mind constantly drifting to the stunning girl in the front row. But the jocks are the children of Joseph Stalin's top assassins. The teachers are members of an ancient league of assassins. The class he's failing is Dismemberment 101. And his crush, a member of the most notorious crime syndicate in Japan, has a double-digit body count. All right. That is a crazy intro to this story. And what did you guys think of it?
That's a perfect description, first off. That was just very accurate. Are just initial thoughts on volume 1 is where we're going with this, or?
Just a first trade paperback.
I love Billy. I would die for Billy. Okay, he's one of our, so we get these groups, right? And what I love about this comic is like you get like all the stereotypical like high school jocks and like, but instead it's like almost like Yakuza and the cartel and like Nazis. Just like a very weird combination of stuff, which makes it really interesting on top of it already being the 1980s, which I love. But I'm a little bit partial to the misfits, right? So like the ones that don't fit in, the like more alternative ones, like I already just go for them. So the fact that Marcus was drawn to them too made me like really invested. I don't want to speak too much though, so I want you to give your thoughts before I keep going because I'll go all day.
What about you, Troy?
Just the story in general, you're asking?
Yeah, what did you think of the story?
I think the book is high energy. And I think that, like, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but from the art, but even also the way that it's like it flows as a story, it's just got this like manic energy to it. And I think that like that fits really well with a book about high school. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything is cranked to like 11. Like, you know, it's like everybody's emotions are, it can't just be a breakup. It's got to be like a sword through the gut. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can't just be like a disagreement. It's got to be like, you know, a gunfight in the schoolyard. Like, it's just everything's so elevated, and it just makes the whole book so addictive that way. Like, it also leans itself really well to like cliffhangers. Like the book just always ends every issue. You're like, oh God, what's going to happen? Oh no, you know.
That's the worst with cliffhangers.
I would like to say also, like, it kind of makes you relate to your high school self in a sense, when it's like you have that passion and drive because of your family or your peers to like be the best at what you do. But these kids have to do it for murder. Like they have to do it because their parents are in the cartel, and like that's the expectation of them as like 15-year-old kids, which is just absolutely insane to me.
Right. I also usually have a problem with reading stories about teenagers where the teenagers all talk like adults. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always kind of like have that moment of, and I guess it's kind of like always been a thing, but like I always have that moment of like, okay, I don't think teenagers really talk like this. I know I didn't talk like this. I like to think I did, but I didn't. But this book, it's like, once you understand the stakes and the type of backgrounds that these characters came from, and just how they've probably had to live a lot before they even got to this high school, you buy it. Like, you buy into it. Like, they're smart. They're clever, like, you know, but they're also incredibly dangerous, but they're still teenagers. So they're also very unpredictable in terms of like where that danger is going to come from, like internally, you know, externally, you know, from them to, you know, whoever's exacting revenge or whatever. Like Johnny just threw up the hobo getting almost like nailed in the head, right? Like, it makes the whole book so unpredictable because of that, which is actually, but smart, which is cool.
Yeah, I think there's that great interplay of, as you said, like they speak like adults because they've been through some stuff, and you know when you've been through everything that they've been through, it kind of just really matures you. But at the same time, like Lua was saying, you get that like raw emotion of being a teenager, because it's just, I don't think they could do it any other way with it being in a different setting, because you are so impulsive as a kid, and I think that's like what leads to the brutality. But it's hard because, you know, you're seeing like these teenagers and they're murdering people and they're going off in the bathroom and doing drugs, you know. You're just like, what is going on with the school? Then you kind of have to realize, okay, this is not a normal school at all.
No.
I'd say a small percentage of that could be a real school until It was
Right.
wild. Yeah, yeah.
All
It
right,
makes me
fair
feel
enough.
Yeah.
really good about, like, I thought my high school was really bad, and then I'm like, oh, okay,
Not so
my high
much,
school
right?
was pretty easy compared to this.
I just love that it's just behind, like, what is it, a restaurant? And then you just go in the back and it's underground. Like,
Right.
nobody's ever went behind the store before and saw that. Like, I just love it so much.
It's like the Men in Black building.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is. Yeah, it
yeah.
totally is. And I mean, like, it's a huge mansion too, which
Oh,
is also the
amazing.
other funny thing about it. But I feel like this is one of the things I feel like the TV show couldn't quite do that the comic can
Mhm.
do. It's like, you can go into the back of like a carry out and then come out on the other side and it's the X Mansion or whatever you want to call it, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think was the strongest aspect of the story for you? Like, what was it about the story that really kind of gripped you? What about you, Troy?
I Marcus is interesting because he's right, but he's wrong a lot too, and it also comes from a place of hurt and cynicism, and he's kind of justified in that cynicism, but at the same time, you want him to kind of you really hope, and I mean we're 45 issues in, and it still hasn't happened, but you really hope that like he'll come out of the other end of this transformed and like maybe a little bit more optimistic, and then you get glimmers of that in the subsequent issues after this initial trade. But yeah, I think that Marcus being an anchor is really interesting. Like, I think that it's cool that he's Latino, right? Like, I think that's actually really cool that he's the main character, and that's the decision they made. But also, like, yeah, it really weaves in all these other interesting aspects of the '80s that I think we don't really talk about. For example, the fact that Reagan did like just basically let any mental asylum throw the doors open. Like, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm from Silver Spring, like Maryland, and that's a real thing. That really does happen. Like, people are just kind of like ejected into the streets and like they're forced to like live on their own and figure it out. And so we see the repercussions of that. Like, like in issue one,
Immediately.
that was pretty,
Yeah.
like first couple of pages, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's really interesting, like how he weaves everything with Marcus. I find really fascinating, even when I don't agree with him. Like his perspective is intriguing and justified in some cases.
He's ready to go kill Reagan. Like, that's his whole thing.
Yeah,
And that kind of hooked me. I was like, this dude's ballsy. Like, he's
Right,
ready to
right,
go.
right.
But I also think, like, for me, like, I was immediately drawn to Maria with that first sequence of like her and it's like all the Dia dos Muertos in the alley where Marcus is trying to run away and from the cops in the beginning. Yeah, she just looks so cool. And I was immediately interested in her story because, again, like Latina and like the background was really interesting. But as I kept writing the comic, I just like got so drawn to her character. And like there's aspects of her that like not as extreme that I can see in myself. And I find her so badass and interesting. And I just, yeah, immediately was hooked.
Yeah, I love that they have these great female, like strong female characters in here. I love that with any story, but then you get these women like Saya and Maria, and they're such strong characters. I would never mess with them,
No.
Right.
definitely.
Let it alone get in a relationship with either one of them. Like that's one of the
Yeah.
interesting parts of this story.
That's really
I would.
ballsy of him.
I
Lewis
wouldn't
says
mess with
different.
them. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with them, but they're definitely my type.
Well, my type, that's a whole nother category, right? Like it's
I know.
but reading these, like it's like the warning signs are there, and Marcus just goes head first into it every single time. And yeah, he ends up doing the Betty and Veronica thing, which is totally
Yes.
ill-advised here. Like, please God, don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
worst like love triangle to ever put yourself into. 'Cause You're
Right.
just gonna die either way.
Mhm.
Right.
Like none of that's gonna come out good.
No.
Now, was there a favorite moment that either of you guys really had in the story? At least his first trade paperback.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, the first trade. All right. You want to go, Lua?
Sorry, I'm limiting you.
I have a couple things. So I personally, I don't know if we're going to talk too much about Wes, but Wes's art is so cool and unique. And once they go on the road trip to Vegas, which is like immediately in this comic, there's a scene where they're doing drugs in the bathroom and like Maria and Saya have the world's biggest smile on. And from there, I was just like, I love this dude's art. Like it's so unique and so funny. But that entire trip to Vegas, for me was just so like bold and funny, and the dialogue I loved, and the art at that time, like that's on the screen, is just fantastic. And I thought it was really cool and different. And I enjoyed that a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, yeah, I mean, like definitely his art. I mean, I know we'll talk about art later, but definitely his art comes alive in that Vegas. Well, that whole drug scene that like I
Yeah.
guess goes from halfway through one issue into the next issue.
Hmm.
I can't remember actually right now, but like I thought it was really clever how they after they kill was it Billy's dad? Is it Billy? It's Billy's dad, right? Am I getting it right? Uh, they end up basically the next issue in jail, and like the whole police interrogation is underway, and it's interesting to kind of see they do this interesting thing where it's like it kind of throws you off center because you're really kind of wondering as you're reading it, like, wait, did they kill him? Like,
Yeah.
does that something that really happened, or did he imagine this? And then you're kind of hoping that, like, I guess it's because the way the story's laid out, you're kind of hoping that they didn't, so they can just go home at this point because everything's gone horrible. And yeah, it just still, it's interesting how it plays with your expectations in that scene. I thought that was really cool. Pretty much anything in Vegas, and
Yeah.
anything from the road trip up is phenomenal. It's great.
All right, now I gotta ask a hard hitting question. Which clique would you be in at King's Dominion High School, or would you create your own? And I know someone, I forget which one of you noted it earlier, is that they are very like racially, motivated groups.
Mhm.
So, I mean, would you stick with, I guess, what you would probably be cast in, or would you create your own? I don't know. What do you think? Who
Mm,
wants to take this on first?
mm.
I didn't see a name for it, but I would be with those misfits, man. You know, like right outside the graveyard with the rest of them, all those tatted up, like unwanted kids. Wherever Billy's at, I'm going there, first off. And then second off, I would absolutely, yeah, anything that's like a misfit is definitely the way that I would go with the groups, I think. Might not be the
Who is
strongest.
the goth kid?
Yeah, I am the goth kid in the group for sure.
It's like the South Park goth kids, but
Yeah, yeah.
they're killing
Oh,
people. I don't
absolutely. Yeah.
know. What about you, Troy?
You know what? Actually, I was gonna joke probably NWO, or was not. It's not the NWO. It's the Final World Order. But truthfully, like I'm with Lou on this. Like, yeah, the Misfits. I tend to gravitate towards them too, typically. So
They're the
that's
coolest. They party the
yeah,
hardest, you know?
that mirrors my high school experience. Actually, like
Mhm.
it was a very racially diverse group of kids who skipped class together.
Oh,
So
there you go.
yeah, I'm with the Misfits. They kind of make the most sense to me.
Yeah. I feel like it's really hard to have that many different kind of groups in one school. I'm surprised this has lasted 9 trade paperbacks so far because I figured they all would have killed each other so
Yeah.
much
I
sooner.
mean, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't, but not everybody survives. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
that's true. All right. Now, did you guys watch the show?
Yes.
All right. What did you guys think of the show in comparison to the comic? What about you, Lua?
Well, I really loved it. I thought they did a great job with casting, like really good face characters that embodied the characters well. We talked about Marcus's mom's death a little bit. There was a panel earlier, but they did it from the comic panel onto the screen, which I always love in movies and like television. So that was really cool. Overall, I feel like it fit the theme to Deadly Class. Like I'm so salty they didn't give it another season because Sci-Fi did a surprisingly very good job with this show. I'm surprised it didn't get picked up by another network. I might be the only one that feels this way in this panel. I don't know, but I thought they did a really good job of sticking to like that first volume in general. Like it felt very true to that, so I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I like the show a lot. I really wanted another season of it. I just wonder if it wouldn't have been better on like a network that probably could have gotten away with a bit more.
Mm,
Hmm.
Maybe like I don't know HBO or Showtime, like
mm.
because I just
Yeah,
feel like there's no way to really stay completely true to the comic without having like some
with
sort
that
of
much gore.
yeah.
Mm, mm,
I,
mm.
I
It's
was
a bit.
surprised that it was so as gory as it was on Sci-Fi, like and
Yeah.
like as yeah. So I was surprised by that, but I agree. It probably needed a different network.
Mm.
What about you, Troy?
Yeah, I'm gonna be the outlier here, I guess.
I
Like
knew it. I knew it.
There's always one.
I knew it.
I was really excited about the show. First of all, it was the Russo brothers, and I was like, I told you this before, me. I'm a Marvel hoe bag, so Russo brothers, yes, absolutely. But on top of that, sorry,
It's okay.
I should have prepared you for
Don't
that.
kill the
I was
guests.
sitting out. Yeah.
But then on top of that, yeah, it's Rick Remender in a Wes Craig comic, and it's a comic I'm already familiar with. So I was really gung ho about it. I think maybe some of my issue with the TV show is like they kind of drag out certain bits that only kind of happen in small pieces here, and they kind of have to because it's a TV show, right? I also kind of felt like I want to be fair to the producers. Like I'm not saying like this to drag them or anything like that. I did feel like the ethnicity, the racial aspects of it were very overt on the show. Like it's kind of just here in the comic, and you kind of get it pretty quickly. At least that's how I got what I got from it. But yeah, I feel like the show's a little bit more stereotypical, just a little bit more stereotypical to the point that I kind of noticed it a bit more. But then also you can kind of go, well, the story takes place in the 80s, like, so that's maybe a very particular type of representation that they're trying to go for, but I don't know. But
I wonder
overall,
if they would have. I wonder if there was another season if they would have died off from that. Like it wouldn't have been so in your face and it would have been more natural. But we will never get that. So
We'll never get that.
No, I'm really sad about that. All right.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I will say this. Sorry, my bad.
Go for
There's
it.
an episode with Brian Posehn where this never happens in the comic, but there's an episode with Brian Posehn where he's the oldest guy at a house party, and that was a great episode. Like all
so good.
all right. Like all the characters' plot lines kind of intersect there, and it just like really worked really well. And like as I'm watching it, I was like, okay, I see what you did here. You don't have the budget to go all the way with this, but you found a way to get around it and give me something really satisfactory. So I got to give him credit.
Yeah. All right. Now we've discussed the story. Now let's go ahead and get into the art. Oh, and before we get into that, there was a viewer comment from Aaron. We have one from Aaron that says, "Do you think Deadly Class would have done better as an adult animated show than a live action?" Oh.
So yeah, actually, the cool thing is Sci-Fi did animate the comic book. I actually realized as I was rereading this for this that I've probably read this or I've seen this story about like 3 or 4 different times at this point. Like I think I read it twice. There was a series of animated shorts they did, and then I watched the TV show. So it does exist. I think it's on Sci-Fi's YouTube or something like that if you want to take a look at it.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go find that.
Mhm.
I haven't seen that, but with other shows that are doing so well with like adaptations in that way, I could see that doing extremely well.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe then we'll get a second season.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do it animated style.
They could just
All
bring
right.
them back as voice actors. That'd be sick.
Yes.
Oh, that's the other thing. The actors on the show voice all the characters too, which is actually pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Perfect.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Your knowledge is just everything I need. I'm gonna go look that up after.
Okay, so Deadly Class was illustrated by Wes Craig, who also worked on Gravediggers Union, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Thunder Agents. So, what did you guys think of the style of art used for this comic? Let's go ahead and start with you, Troy.
Oh man,
seat.
hot seat. I did a video about this book, and I was like fanboying over Wes Craig's art. I think he's one of the best artists working right now. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, like not even top 10, top 5. Like the amount of just like energy that he brings to the panel. I mean, one thing I did notice early on is there's a lot of angles that he kind of plays with a lot in the course of this, but he also finds ways to focus on characters in unique ways when he's laying out the pages. And like this, exactly. This is what I was talking about. Thank you, Johnny, because I was doing a bad job of describing it. But yeah, it's just really interesting and really fascinating, and it just feels so alive. It just feels so electric. Like it just feels like big. And yeah, like you really get that when you get to the Vegas issue. Like you really understand that when you get to the Vegas issue. And then there's later stuff that happens. Like I think it's actually the next trade after this, but they're basing it in a hotel and there's this big shootout. And like just what he does with panels and like how he has multiple characters moving around a splash page. It's so cool. It just looks so awesome. And it matches the emotional intensity of the book, like at all times. I think it actually ramps up the emotional intensity. So yeah, big fan of Wes Craig. And I'd never even seen his work before. At least I don't think so before I started reading this.
What about you, Lua?
I'm back everything Troy said to a T. I think he's just so good and his art style is so different and particular that like if you've seen it anywhere, you'd be like, oh, that's a Wes Craig. Like he would know it's his stuff. I think it does bring all of the dialogue alive so well. And I just think he has such a fun, unique style. I mentioned earlier again when they were doing drugs in the bathroom and they had these large exaggerated mouths and just everything is exaggerated, but in a way that doesn't feel like dumb. Like it just feels like it enhances the story. And I really like that a lot. He's a talented dude.
Yeah. I'm one of those people. I'm not usually one for like the gritty kind of line work, like almost like preacher-esque kind of art style. It's not usually one that I prefer, but for some reason I was just really drawn to it in this comic because, like you said, Troy, it really does lend to the power of the story. The line work really gives that action, and kind of going.
Yeah, like look at that.
Yeah, there's so much action and movement to it. It's chaotic, like you said, teenagers are, It's this kind of like so much motion and so much going on. So I think it's a perfect fit for the story itself. And now I know, Lua, you had talked about the Vegas scenes and about the art. Were there any other moments, or did you want to touch on that one a little bit more and kind of how you felt about the art?
I mean, I just think that again, like I just think his style's so creative. They showed a scene where it was when they were trying to buy the acid, and it was just these little panels throughout it. And I just think it's like this scene is just so good because it gives you like the full story without having to have multiple layers of a page. It's just right there for you, and it just makes sense for like what is going on with these characters. I think he just embodies them well. And I don't know, man. I love the colors and everything too, man. All the color palettes are so good. Yeah, look at that.
I love that.
No, I was going to say we got to give a shout out to was it Lee Luridge? I think I'm saying the name right. The colorist, because especially again in those Vegas scenes, like you showed the shot of Marcus fighting in the convenience store. It's like the yellow backdrop. It's like and like on top of that, he's still on drugs, so you got to see the trail of him punching him and then the guy falling back. And like it's just such a beautiful marriage of art and color. Like it's just like perfect.
My dude ate like a whole sheet of acid and was like, I'll be fine. Like, it's just so bad. Yeah, like I can't.
Now, Troy, did you have a particular art moment that you really liked? I know Lua pointed out one. I didn't know if you had.
Man, I keep leaning on this Vegas one, but since we're limited to like volume 1, right? So
sorry, no spoilers.
But I mean, at the same time, like it's volume 1, and I feel like this was deliberate. It's structured so that it builds up to the Vegas scene and like the fight that happens afterwards. And so like it's all of that, every last bit of it, just kind of like explodes. Like it just looks cool. And then the subsequent fight that happens afterwards was with the leader of Los Fatos. Was it Maria's boyfriend? Yeah, it's just like that moment alone is like you knew it was coming, but when it happens, you're like, oh damn, like like it just gets so out of control so quickly.
I don't know, man. I love Chico. I know he deserved it's all right. Peace out, but I loved him.
Right. Soto Vatos. There you go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, who was your favorite character and your least favorite character?
Ooh. Man, that's a tough one.
Sorry.
I'm drawing a blank on the like main villain's name that's chasing Marcus. The dude who bangs a goat. That guy is just too much for me. Yeah. And look at it just it's just too much for me. Once I saw him with the goat, I was like, I'm good. He's my least favorite. However, again, I said earlier I would die for Billy. I just think he's just funny and witty and just punk and just everything that I would like in a character. I think he does it so well. His dialogue is great. His motives are great. I like really enjoy him. But of course I love the ladies too. Sai and Maria, they're just fantastic. And I truly cannot complain about our group of misfits all together. Like they're all so good.
What about you, Troy?
You know what? Man, that's a tough one. I actually like all these. I love hate all these characters. Like I think that's the kind of the intent of this book, right? It's like you kind of love to hate them. They're kind of all despicable in some way, shape, or form. But at the same time, they have these code of ethics that are fascinating and make them likable in like a lot of weird ways. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I could go with the guy who's banging goats. Like I can do
It's just
that.
so bad. That enough was to make me hate that guy.
Right.
Man.
That's just
Right.
like the ultimate. All right, you're done.
Right. I mean, that's a hell of a
Yeah.
way to do an entrance. You talked about Preacher. Like, I remember when that scene came up, I was like, this is like Preacher 101. This is like, just find the most despicable thing that you can make a person do and then make the villain do it early on. And you're done.
It really is.
They're
It really
so
has that
fast.
shock factor of
Right.
Preacher, where you're like, oh, they went
Mhm.
there. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think
yeah.
the whole first volume's like that because it's like here's Marcus's backstory immediately. Also, his parents are dead. Here's this tragic thing that happened.
Yeah.
Also, this guy's banging a goat. Also, they're on drugs. Like it's just really, really fast paced immediately.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that.
But I think that's also kind of like his life, right? Everything's just hitting him so fast. It's like he's got so many things going on, and it's like nothing's slowing down for him at all.
Mhm.
And just like nothing's slowing down for us, we are going to get into our final thoughts.
Cool.
All right, not stopping yet. What is everyone's final thoughts on the series? Let's go with Lua. I'm going to pick on you.
I'm still reading the ongoing stuff and I'm pretty happy with it. So if you pick up this volume, which I'm hoping you are because we've been talking a lot about it, please continue to read the rest. It's so good and the storyline progresses so well. It gets you frustrated at times because you just want the best for them. But of course, with a school like this, it's kind of impossible to do. Overall, again, I think Rick is just so talented. I think the development of these characters has been so nice. And I think the art style and everything just makes it a very just good comic all around. We didn't really talk too much about like why Marcus is homeless and like why he's going through this, but that whole entire backstory with the orphanage and stuff is really, really impactful and like makes a very great storyline. So overall, it's one I will always recommend. It's in my top 5. I always tell people to check it out, but I highly suggest it.
Top 5. That's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Troy?
I just remembered like what the goat banger's name was. It's Chester, which of course his name is Chester.
Chester.
Of course it is.
I was like,
Oh,
"Yeah."
God.
So yeah, there you go. Sorry, that was bugging me, and I was like, "What is his name? What is his name?" It's Chester. Of course, it's Chester. In terms of like the book itself, this is one of the best books out there right now. I don't think people talk about it nearly enough. I know some people like it'll definitely turn you off a little bit, right? But like we've said it already. If you like Kick-Ass, if you like Preacher, like anything in that vein, then you probably should be reading this book already because it's very much in line with that. Like it's bold and it doesn't give a damn, like in a lot of cases, which I think is also pretty cool. I think it's deliberately punk for that reason. And it's just, I said this before, the cliffhangers. The cliffhangers are just brutal. Like every couple of issues you get one, you're like, damn, okay, I gotta wait 30 days for this. So yeah.
So glad we have trade paperbacks.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
This is one of those ones where I couldn't imagine having to read this issue by issue
mhm.
because it would just kill me.
No, that's what happened to me last year. Like I got to issue 44 and they were like hiatus, and I was like, no.
I respect your decision, but I also will cry about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, now Troy, you gave some suggested readings. You want to kind of give us again, like what you would recommend to people that are fans of this? What else they should try?
You know what? The thing that got me through the door in the first place with this, I mean, besides Rick Remender, who I was already a fan of because of Uncanny X-Force. But the thing that got me through the door with this is because the premise initially sounded like Battle Royale. It's one of those things where, ultimately it didn't necessarily turn into that. There's no tournament, but it definitely reminds me of that a lot. So in terms of recommended reading, if you can find it, check out the Battle Royale comic from I think it used to be Tokyo Pop. I don't know who has it now. But it's very much in that vein. It's like, high school kids, just going at it, like, the worst impulses. There's definitely like a little bit of a Lord of the Flies like element to it that's also here, and I think it works. Outside of that, yeah, I'd say like, yeah, if you like Kick-Ass, if you like yeah, if you like Garth Ennis or Mark Miller, then you'll probably like this. And if you liked Uncanny X-Force, you'll probably like this as well.
Nice. Good recommendations. What about you, Lua?
In the aspect of Misfits, I mean, this is a pretty popular one, but I feel like you can't go wrong with Umbrella Academy. That's kind of the same aspect of like Misfits destroying shit. I also really like They're Not Like Us. It's kind of a limited series from Image Comics that has a unique art style as well, and it's pretty cool. In general, if you're looking for a new thing to read from Image in general, I would highly suggest Die. It's basically like D&D and Jumanji mixed, and I also love Saga, so those are definitely my favorites from Image, I would say.
Perfect. I
Mhm.
was actually going to say Umbrella Academy too. I was going to say it's like the tame version of this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
It's like the
yeah.
G-rated version, and Umbrella isn't, like G-rated at all, but like compared to
Mm-mm.
this, it's
In
like the
compared to this,
G-rated
yeah.
version.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, I had that moment too. Where I was like, I could say Umbrella Academy, but I feel like if you watch Umbrella Academy TV show and then expect to like read this and get something the same thing out of it, I'm like,
Oh no, no.
Yeah.
It's just for me the concept of anything like I'm big on to anything that's a misfit style show. Like if you
oh yeah.
have a bunch of group of misfits like causing chaos, I'm gonna watch it,
Hmm,
you know?
hmm.
Kind of
So
like,
Yeah.
also kind of like Runaways a little bit, where you get like those
yeah.
those
Hmm,
misfit characters.
hmm.
Hmm.
My suggestion was gonna be if you're really into that whole like '80s time period, want to go back into that. Paper Girls is another one
Yes.
set in the
Hmm,
1980s.
hmm.
Great nostalgia comic book, so one I would definitely recommend. All
Beautifully
right.
done.
So that brings us towards the end of our show. This is my reminder to you guys to pick up a copy of Deadly Class at your local comic shop using comicshoplocator.com. And before we head out, I'm going to let everyone throw in some plugs. Troy, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, I do actually. So I am excited because this week, I actually got to interview Rick Remender and Wes Craig. Actually, it was less of an interview and more of a series of recommendations they gave us. So yeah, I asked them like I knew going into the issue 45 that's out this week that the book was going to jump ahead to 1991. And so I kind of was like, well, clearly this book is very much influenced by music of whatever period it's in. So I asked them to give me their 90s playlist for the next arc, which is called Savior Generation. And they did. And it's great. I mean, of course, like stuff like Nirvana's on there, but then like, Wes Craig threw out Bjork and a bunch of other stuff. Like, and, some of it's stuff that like, bands that I've always known about, but I'd never done a deeper dive. So it was actually pretty educational for me. Like it was great writing, not even writing the article, putting the article together on Tuesday and listening to the tracks that they suggested. Like it just got me more amped for the book itself. So yeah, definitely check that out. That's on previewsworld.com right now.
Oh, that's really
They
awesome.
they're great for that. I know Rick
Mhm,
has like one for Deadly Class specific to where it's like all 80s stuff and it's right on
mhm,
Spotify and it's just totally worth listening to. So I
mhm.
enjoy that.
Very cool. I'm going to have to find that. What about
Yeah.
you, Lua? What do you have to plug?
So I do a comic series that's been on hiatus, where I talk about Image Comics and stuff. But in general, you can find all of my content on lewisstardust.com. I do YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, like any social media site you think of, YouTube, all that, I'm on there. So lewisstardust.com is the best way to find me on the internet.
Yes, go find her. Go find her. All right, and if you have a graphic novel that you'd like us to talk about next time, leave a comment below, and your choice could be picked for a future episode. This is your reminder to follow us at previewsworld.com on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And my last chance to say heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless, and we'll see you next time.